Hello, Brandon Lien here, and a hearty welcome to returning viewers and to first-time viewers as well to this series of video tutorials in which I go behind the scenes and share with you my workflow for illustrations and designs. Okay, so what we have here is a mock cover of Time magazine. It's an idea that's been rattling in my head since the late 90s, and I finally got around to visualizing it. So yeah, it's been a while. This is a basic layout sketch of the piece. I've arrived at this after numerous thumbnails done in my sketchbook, and from there I gathered a lot of photographic reference, which you see off to the left there of my working area. And here it's just a quick jump to a value block in that I've actually missed recording. So I didn't start recording until about 10 minutes into this process. And you can see off to the left, huge amount of reference that I gathered for the subject that we're trying today, and also a quick list of things that I've brainstormed to put on his desk potentially. Okay, so in this part here, I've started to block in the room itself, the window frame, and the back wall. And you're going to see me use the lasso tool quite a lot. This is a relatively quick way to block in shapes. Right? In conjunction with the lasso tool selections, I'm also using the gradient tool with the settings set from fill, solid to transparent. Right? Blocking in everything, all the lights and the darks, and you definitely don't want to rush through this part of the process. Try to be as accurate as you can in blocking out these initial shapes. Right. Just a little quick note, this is sped up quite a lot. I think the total time spent on this was roughly in the neighborhood of about 4 hours or so, not including the thumbnail sketching and photo gathering. Some quick rendering the cow's face there just to block everything in. And you know, I'm also modifying the cow's face a lot from the reference image that I'm using. And this is something that I like to personally do just because I don't like to copy my reference verbatim. Using brushes to get a special look or a certain look on some of my brush strokes. And the reason why I use that spatter brush on the nose was just because if you study that photograph of the cow's nose carefully, you'll notice that the tissue on the nose is actually, you know, a lot of bumps and divots and stuff. And you know, this is where Photoshop is really cool in that you can let the brush do a lot of the mark making for you without having to paint in, you know, tiny brush strokes basically. And again, you also notice that I leave my brush palette open because I do get a lot of questions about brush settings and what brushes I use while doing my work. And you know, even though people like to say that it's not the brush you use, it's how you use it, blah blah blah. You know, I'm going to show it here just because, yeah, if you're curious, you know, hope that helps. And also, quick shout out to Shaddy Safadi. I think I said his name right, hopefully. Yeah, so the brush set that I'm using is a brush set that Shaddy has shared on his website, and I'll be posting that link at the bottom in the video description of this video file. Okay, using the lasso tool a lot in the workflow, and also the free transform tool in conjunction with the warp tool, right, to bend some of the shapes. And one thing that's nice about Photoshop, again, copying and pasting, right? You see I just drew one leaf or one leaf on that potted plant and duplicated everything else and just, you know, manipulated it to curve and whatnot so that it will look slightly unique. And you know, I didn't have to draw the same leaf 6 times manually, right? Just copy and paste it, right? You also notice on the right, I am keeping a lot of my elements on separate layers. And that way I can draw items independently. And in case I mess up, I just fix that individual item like the chair or the suit without having to affect the object that is bumping up visually right next to it. Right, so blocking in the suit there, and on the cow's face, starting to refine some of the shapes, using the lasso tool a lot to throw in some quick ambient occlusion shadows, rendering on the suit sleeve itself. And here I am having some slight difficulties rendering that hoof. So I brought in some diagrams of a cow's hoof whenever I'm stuck, and that's the awesomeness of being connected to the internet. Reference gathering has become a lot easier as more images are uploaded, day after day onto the net. Okay, so just refining some of the elements on the cow's hoof, on his jacket, on his pop-up collar, and now getting into rendering some of the fur surface, making a quick button and then duplicating it, right? Adding it onto the sleeve. And yeah, the layer workflow is great for this. You can experiment on a new layer. If it works, then you merge it. If it doesn't, then you can just trash it, and it doesn't affect the underlying art. Starting to block out the surface of that chair, his leather chair. And I've also kept the brush strokes on the chair fairly loose. And the reason for that is I want the viewer to focus mainly on the cow EO's face, right? And that's where I spend most of the rendering time and really make my mark making count. Okay, starting to add some props to his table, bringing back some of the reference so I can take a look at that CEO at the bottom there from that reference photo that I have. And all the elements that I'm experimenting with, I keep on separate layers. And it is just a way, way more efficient workflow than to take that risk and paint flat, right? If you're experimenting, for me at least, it's better to keep it on a separate layer. Okay, so rendering his reflection, the table's surface. And that's one thing to note. When you are trying to render a realistic surface, the best way to think about it is just to think of what that surface, the surface reflectivity index is like. Like, is it a dull reflection or is it a very sharp focus reflection, right? And more often than not, if you get that reflective property of that surface right, it will sell that surface very convincingly. Okay. All right, so another benefit of keeping things on separate layers is you can make last minute tweaks and adjustments, and you can see me throw in a slight layer of light behind him just to pop his silhouette out a little more in this piece. All right, still trying to figure out that hoof. Fairly satisfied with it, but I think it's still not as convincing as I like it to be. I'll just move on for now and focus on other items. Trying to nail the reflection of the monitor support back onto the monitor base itself. And throughout the course of this piece, you'll notice that I don't zoom in a lot. I try to just paint at a smaller resolution so I don't get too much into noodling the details. All right, so a quick chart on how this CEO, this Entremanure of the Year, got rich, and that's through selling cow chips. Right? Oh, a nod to the movie The Hudsucker Proxy. And if you're not too certain about what that movie's about, then look it up. It's a pretty funny movie. All right, just throwing in the logo there as a test and flattening a copy of all the black and white rendering and shifting all the colors over to the warmer side. All right, starting to do a quick color pass on the cow with a lighter overlay layer, right? And yeah, just starting to add more color to the cow itself. Right. And also adding a patch of darker fur to the cow's face, right around the eye area there. Duplicating another layer and just shifting that over to a cooler, colder color temperature and masking out what's in the light side and the shadow side, right? So basically the colder layer is on top, the warmer layer is on the bottom, and by masking it, you're basically hiding what's lit and what's not lit. Looks like I forgot to put in his ear tag there, so just painting in some last minute details, some more lighting touches, and figuring out the framing, right? Adding in, I think we'll be adding in the text. Oh, yeah, before the text, I forgot to add in his reflection of his shirt back on the table, so quickly added that in there. So I am saving out this file separately so I can start arranging the text elements independently. We're heading towards the final minute of this video, so I hope you gain some helpful insight into how this piece was made. And yeah, I have to say that this was a very fun personal piece. Humor is a very tricky and difficult thing to pull off well, but hopefully you got a few chuckles out of this. Thanks again for tuning in. All right, please subscribe to know when the next video will be coming out. Until next time, have fun creating, and I will see you. Bye.